Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go. Yeah.
87.5%. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. And that's also the chance of each of the 4 game 1 winners in yesterday's MLB playoff debut winning the Wild Card series. There have been 16 2 out of 3 series since 2020, and 14 of them have been won by the game 1 winner. Quick math, 14 of 16 is 87.5%. So raise your hand if you are a Tigers fan, a Royals fan, a Mets fan, or a Padres fan. You got to be feeling pretty good about your chances having watched the playoff games yesterday. I love quadruple headers. That's all I kept thinking about. I was waiting for 2:30 yesterday, 2:32 specifically. I do wish that they were sequential and that there was no crossover of any kind, but that would be 12 hours of baseball. So I get why it can't be. But that said, I got the TV, then I've got the phone, but I wanted the bigger screen, so I took out the iPad. And then my old issue of watching neither instead of both or one, which is incredibly annoying to me. But you want to watch the beginning of every game, then you want to watch the end of every game, but then you want to watch when there's scoring opportunities for every game. But in baseball, it's not like the red zone, although in football you can have an 80-yard touchdown. But in baseball, anyone at the plate is a scoring opportunity. So it's all very confusing to me and dizzying, but man, do I like it. So there's a bunch of different stats. This is when I become a bit of a stat geek because I'm always thinking about the math of it all. So 87.5%, those are amazing odds. It's why you've got to win game 1. But on the other hand, if you're the Tigers and you're pitching your Cy Young Award-winning pitcher, he's going to win it this year, Skubal, you know you've got to win game 1 because otherwise you're screwed more than the 87.5%. AJ Hinch, the manager of the Tigers, said, listen, we got a game 1 starter. After that, who knows? What a sorry state of pitching affairs when there's a playoff team, one of the hottest teams in baseball, who first round pitching lined up. They didn't need to play a doubleheader Monday. They didn't even really need Sunday. And they can't figure out pitching enough to say it's just going to be chaos. Not my words. Those are Hinch's words. So when you are the Tigers going into a game like that, you're saying, well, forget the odds of 87.5%. We got to win game 1. If you're Houston, you're saying, well, I only got a 12.5% chance of winning the series, but I got Brown and Kikuchi coming. The Tigers have Sleepy and Dopey. If we can steal game 1, that'd be great. That's what we would always say when it was a big series or even a playoff series. Hey, let's steal this one. Let's just get it. And then we'll play it by ear. And then you don't get it. You go back into the clubhouse. You talk to the manager after the game. All right, no problem. Right on schedule. I used to say that all the time. Don't worry, Skip. We're right on schedule. Not Skip Schumacher. Skip as in skipper. So I was watching the Detroit game, and I was waiting for somebody to hit a home run because we learned in last year's playoffs, if you can out-homer your opponent, you're basically going to win the game. It's just going to work that way. Of course, scoring first is critical. You got to score first. Not so much in the regular season do I view scoring first as important, not because the games are not as important. You just feel differently in a postseason game. Runs are harder to come by, notwithstanding how amazing the amazing Mets offense was. But in general, offense is hard to come by. Pitching is going to win you playoff series. You out homer an opponent, you're going to go 25-4. Score first. You were 3-1 yesterday. It's pretty good. Not bad. All these road teams winning. 3 out of 4 road teams won. I was thinking about all of the effort. It took me back, Coca, a little bit off track. It took me back to a meeting I had in baseball. It was actually in New York. And the meeting was all about home field advantage and how to reward. The point of MLB's version of load management is rewarding teams over 162 games to play well, to win, and to not. It wasn't a tanking issue. It was, what can we do to reward a team that has been consistently good, that wins 90 or more games? And it always came back to, well, there's 2 ways. One, you can do it with more off days before a playoff series. That's when the buys came around. And that was very mixed in the room in terms of who wanted off days, who didn't, who wanted buys, who didn't. What was unanimous is nobody who won 90 or 95 or 100 games wanted their season to end 24 hours later in a 1-game playoff. As much as the broadcasters loved it because they crave March Madness, they crave NFL playoffs, they crave win or go home, baseball teams, both the baseball front offices and owners, were saying, forget it. And that's when the 2 or 3 was born. But then the question was, what do you do to further reward teams or try to minimize the risk of a quick exit? All right, 2 out of 3. How about this? No travel. You get to host all the games. How's that for incentive? If you win a division, you are guaranteed, if you don't have the best 2 records of the 3 division winners, you have to play the wild card round because that's the math. You don't get the bye. You may not even want the bye, but you can play all 3 games at home, which is why Milwaukee is home to the Mets for all 3. And by the way, if you're a wild card team, we'll do the 3rd wild card, and here's what we'll do. We'll really make it so being the number 1 wild card, which is how it used to be when we won the World Series, there was 1 wild card. That's it. Which is how we ended up playing the best team in baseball, record-wise, San Francisco. You got to play the first round, but you get to play wild card team. All of a sudden, not such a bargain. So if you're the best wild card, meaning the number 4 seed or the number 1 of the 3 wild card teams, you're going to get to play all 3 games at home. And if you're the other 2 wild cards, you're going to have to go on the road. And if you're the worst wild card, you got to play a division winner. Of course, the New York Mets arranged their doubleheader on Monday because they'd rather play a division winner than the top wild card. Could turn out to be quite prescient. There's an 87.5% chance the Mets made the right decision by losing game 2 of that doubleheader and having them play the Brewers instead of the Padres. But what happened in the meeting is that a bunch of people stood up. Well, I think that's metaphoric. I think just started talking in the meeting and saying, home field advantage in baseball is not all that it's cracked up to be. So the question came, how about this? How about we change all the ways that revenue gets distributed? What if the home team gets to keep all the revenue, forget the union, forget the umpires, forget putting it into the pool? What if we just keep it all? Now we're talking some incentive because home field advantage, you get to bat last. It's not the biggest deal. If you look at, frankly, it's happening in the NBA too in ways that I never dreamt, where hosting a Game 7 used to be series over, and more teams are winning on the road in Game 7 than I ever remember. And that's totally anecdotal because I don't have the stat. It just feels right. But in baseball, it's never been a thing. The revenue suggestion got shut down, and the owners were told, just play at home. You get a home crowd. You get to upsell for next year's season tickets. You get to over-deliver to your corporate sponsors in stadium. It's really a great deal all around. And so that's how it all went down. So Detroit goes on the road into Houston, wild card team playing a division winner. Their ace wins the game. Framber Valdez looked mediocre. He hung a few sliders in an inning and got nickeled and dimed to death. and the Astros end up losing. And all I could think about, of course, was myself and how I had just tweeted my playoff predictions and gone through them with you on yesterday's show that Houston was going to win the pennant. And now I was thinking they've got a 12.5% chance to even get to the division series. On the other hand, they get Hunter Brown. So that game is coming to an end. I start the Baltimore-Kansas City game, which was a pick of the day. I'm watching Corbin Burnes, and I'm thinking to myself, this is so crazy. The Milwaukee Brewers somehow are in the playoffs as a division winner, hosting the Mets in Milwaukee. I've got friends there and family there. They ended up leaving unhappy, but be that as it may, meanwhile, you've got Corbin Burnes, the ace for the Orioles, going, who could have been the ace for the Brewers, who would have been way better than Peralta going in game one. Of course, so would Woodruff. So Corbin Burnes pitches great, goes 8+, and yet the trend was not our friend as the Orioles lost their 9th straight postseason game. A meaningless stat because it's different players, different teams, different years. What a game that was. All of which was the appetizer for me for watching the Mets and Braves to see what it was like on the field for them, celebrating Monday night, getting on the plane, flying west. I told you the Mets got to land in Milwaukee, go to the Pfister. The Braves had to fly all the way to San Diego. Good news is that the team hotel in San Diego, it's amazing. There is no other city like it where you play road games. You land in the San Diego FBO in the San Diego airport. And for those who have been to that great city, the team hotel is 7 minutes away from the airport. So you land and you are in your room. The record for me in San Diego when traveling with the team, the record, and the only reason I remember this is because we would always play a game with it. But the record for me in the room, 13 minutes. Amazing. So I'm thinking how will impact the Braves, how will impact the Mets. And the Mets they give up early runs, which goes against the stat. If you score first, you win. Severino gives it up. But then the Mets 5th inning rally, my God. I was looking at the players and looking at what they were doing against Milwaukee. And Milwaukee's got a really good bullpen. Maybe guys you've never heard of, which is why you should watch. Well, you've heard of Devin Williams, but you should watch these series because you'll see pitching staffs and you'll see them throwing 96 to 100 and just say, wow, never heard of these guys. And the Mets pitching was just outstanding. So the Mets end up winning the first game. Not having to use Severino ends up being a huge bonus, as we talked about. And that's it. So then we got one more game. And going into the 4th game, I was thinking, I don't recall a postseason where there hasn't been a home run in 3 games in a row. And of course, I was looking at game times, and the Houston game went over 3 hours. So I was thinking, oh, are we going to go back to long games? And I'm watching San Diego, starts at 8:38 p.m. and Tatis homers second at bat of the game after the man, Arias, who I said, he's not really that valuable as a batting leader, gets on base. It's 2-0 Atlanta. See you later. 2-0 San Diego. See you later. Game over. So then I wanted to dig a little bit deeper in my head to look at this Padres team because, as you know, while I chose the Padres to win the series, I am not an AJ Preller guy. And one of the things that I like doing on Nothing Personal is to try to be even-keeled and honest with my appraisals. So here I go. Wow, is AJ Preller doing well as a GM right now? The way he bolstered his bullpen at the trade deadline. They are a lights-out bullpen with Adam and Scott. They traded Hader and got better. They traded Soto and got better. It's really quite something. For those who don't remember, Soto was a Padre, and they didn't do anything. So they traded Soto to the Yankees, and we'll see if Soto and Judge combine to do more. But look who pitched yesterday for the Padres, Michael King, lights out. Look who hit a home run, Kyle Higashioka. I'm so sorry that I just likely got that wrong. They used Drew Thorpe to go get Dylan Cease. They still have two other guys, Johnny Brito and Randy Vasquez. But it doesn't matter. Let's talk about King and Kyle. Starting battery. Which would you rather have, a starting battery or Juan Soto? All of you were going to say Juan Soto. How could you not? How could you not want him? Now I'm going to ask you to look at the money. You sure you still want Juan Soto? So I'm watching these four games, excited for the quadruple header that'll happen again today. Same order of games starting at 2:30. And then my mind wanders. My mind during October always wanders to where I was when I was in the playoffs and then where I was when I was out of the playoffs. I have a lot more data points to be out of the playoffs. 17 of 18 seasons, I was out of the playoffs. And I was thinking about what years I watched the playoffs, what years I didn't, what we were doing in terms of our off-season planning when the playoffs began, how I would pretend with my baseball people that I wasn't paying attention to the playoffs when, in fact, even when I wasn't watching, I was paying attention. And then, of course, I would watch because I wanted to hurt. I wanted to feel the pain associated with watching other people feel pleasure. It's the opposite of Schadenfreude, which is feeling pleasure at other people's pain. I wanted the pain. Looking back on it, I should work on that and should have worked on that and should continue to work on that therapeutically. I have never had that come up before in any of my sessions with any therapist. What an interesting thing that I'm literally thinking about for the first time this second. And as a matter of fact, Coca, I'm sorry, but hey, it's nothing personal with David Samson. So here we go. I think that's why I do all the athletic things that I do, because I want to feel that pain. I used to think it was just the discomfort and how I was totally fine feeling discomfort, how I'm totally fine with change. But the mental and physical pain of trying to accomplish things that you know you can accomplish, but you know they're going to hurt. I don't know what that says about me or my personality, but I bet you, according to recent data collected, about 1.69% of you may tell me at davidsamsonpodcast.com, or you can get in my DMs, why is it that I need to feel pain while looking at other people's pleasure? Speaking of pain and pleasure, I never really, I want to say this absolutely correctly, so I want to get this right, Coca. 4869. My experience in baseball is that owners take responsibility for things that work and they delegate responsibility after the fact to things that don't. My experience as a team president is that I had to be a shield for my owner, and I did it gladly. More so every 2 weeks, but certainly gladly. Totally understandable. His money, his risk. I'm the operator. Very few owners take responsibility for decisions they make that have gone wrong publicly. And if you would ask me to make a list of meddling owners, I would say there's 30, 100%, no matter what anyone tells you. And if you ask me to give you the top 5 meddling owners, which you could ask me to do, I would do that list. And I would have Ken Kendrick on that list in the top 5. Ken Kendrick is the owner of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Ken Kendrick is incredibly involved, and I know that firsthand. Ken Kendrick is the one, actually, who said we're not doing the Jose Fernandez trade. We had him traded to Arizona, and he's the one who said he didn't want to do it after it was agreed to, might I add. Ken Kendrick went on a podcast or the radio, and he said to Burnes and Gambo, amazingly, looking back in hindsight, a horrible decision to have invested that money in a guy that performed as poorly as he did. Do you know who he's talking about? He's talking about Jordan Montgomery. Let me say it the best way I can say it, he said. If anyone wants to blame anyone for Jordan Montgomery being a D-back, you're talking to the guy that should be blamed because I brought it to their attention. I pushed for it and they agreed to it. Let me go back here, Coca, and talk to you about what that means specifically. Owners go to baseball people with ideas that come from all sorts of people, various family members, various people who come in contact with the owner, from waiters to landscapers to friends to Romans to countrymen. Everybody's got an opinion because, as you know, everybody knows how to run a baseball team. And so the owner says, I'm going to bring this to the baseball guys. None of that is extraordinary, nor is that worthy of being noted. What is worth it to discuss is when the owner gets an idea from somebody, because very rarely does it come from them studying tape or data. They'll go and say, this is what we are doing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Our owner said, we are signing Ichiro, one of the greatest decisions we ever made. It was not a discussion. Our owner said, we're signing Pudge Rodriguez. It's not a discussion. And you're paying him $10 million. But our payroll is only 30. We're going to pay a guy $10 million right now. You're damn right we will. You're going to thank me later. And so we did. Right during the World Series parade. It's a very interesting thing when it works out. But when it doesn't, I never really heard from owners. So why would Ken Kendrick come out and say this now? Is he covering up for Derek Hall? I don't think so. Is he covering up for their baseball ops department? Hasn't? I don't think so. And then I realized that Ken Kendrick and the Arizona Diamondbacks are in the middle of a major stadium push. They either need to refurbish with public money Chase Field, or they need to build a new ballpark. And they're not relocating. So they need some amount of likability for their owner. It's not easy to find likability for owners in general, and specifically for Ken Kendrick. However, by doing a mea culpa like this, you can't come out and say, listen, I love you so much, Phoenix, that I would never ask you for any public money at all. I love this team, this city, this group of people and fans. Of course, you can't have an owner say that because they'd be lying. Of course, they need public money. No matter what they say, the percentage of private money will be used toward a new ballpark. So how about coming out and saying, hey, we won the pennant last year. We missed the playoffs by a game because the Braves and Mets conspired to split a doubleheader, smartly so. So therefore, we didn't make the playoffs. Our fault. We could have won an extra game somewhere amongst the 162. I don't want to blame conspiracies or Mets or Braves, but man, I got to say something. And you remember only a month ago, we talked about Jordan Montgomery because they didn't let him start another game. We revisited the wait to see yesterday, where Jordan Montgomery didn't get to 22 games started because he would have earned more money. As it is, he signed a 1 year plus a vesting option that has been vested already. It's all quite funny to me. Jordan Montgomery is the same guy who fired Scott Boras thinking he should have gotten more guaranteed money and a better deal. And it turns out he ought to be genuflecting towards Scott Boras. They got anyone to pay him anything because he stinks. So Ken Kendrick is going over the roster and he's trying to figure out what can we do here? I want to be likable and I want to get a message out to my fans and to the politicians. And I really need to acknowledge culpability, but I can't do it with Eduardo Rodriguez as an example. Remember him, Eduardo Rodriguez, the Tigers pitcher who didn't want to get traded to a contender, the Dodgers, because he didn't want to move his family, whatever the case may be. And I only said, you better have some serious issues with the children because otherwise that's a competitive issue. And then he signed for $80 million with the Diamondbacks. And then he was hurt half the year, came back. I think he started 10 games for them. You can't call him out because you're stuck with him. Untradeable in every way. Have to eat way too much money to move Rodriguez. But Montgomery, he of the 6.23 ERA, why don't I burn that bridge, torch it actually? I can be likable. It can help our stadium push, and I can get rid of Jordan Montgomery. It's brilliant. Guess what's going to happen? Jordan Montgomery has a player option for about $22.5 million. You can bet your bippy that his new agent, when he left Boris, said, hey, we'll get you more guaranteed money than that. And then Montgomery stunk so badly. Montgomery is going to exercise the player option for $22.5 million. Then the Diamondbacks will have no choice but to trade him. Why? You think Jordan Montgomery is going to pitch another game for the Diamondbacks after what the owner did to him yesterday publicly? No chance, toilet pants. DavidSamsonPodcast.com. None at all. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you a wait to see. Wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. Jordan Montgomery will not start one game for the Diamondbacks in 2025. Wait to see. Now, before we go to break, this is when I would ask the audience. So I'm going to ask you right now, those of you in the chat, if you're live, why does my wait to see say Jordan Montgomery will not start one game for the Diamondbacks in 2025? Let me know the first person, Coco, who answers that question properly. And you may get maybe a piece of merchandise from DavidSamsonPodcast.com. As you know, with everything I do, no script, no nothing, we're live. But every word out of this punum is with a purpose. All right, while Coco reviews the chat, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we had another owner talk. And oh, was it juicy. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. This is David Samson. Thank you. If it's 10:27 Eastern, then you're watching this on DraftKings Network, and I appreciate that. If it's 8:27 Eastern, you're watching this on Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. Even if you're on the DK Network, please go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. We have all real subscribers, and I'm proud of that fact. We are building and building, and we need you to keep going. Playoff time is supposed to be a tough time to watch content if you're a content watcher, but not for me. Plenty of hours in the day to watch one movie every day, which I do, or episodes of a TV show. Coco, we're 1 week away from the end of Bad Monkey. I've watched every one. We're 1 week away from the end of Slow Horses. I've watched every one. Can't wait to review those series when I watch the finales next week. The other day, was it yesterday? It was some bizarre time of day. I love Emil Hirsch. Emil Hirsch is in a movie called Dead Money. He's with Jackie Earle Haley, the Kelly from the Bad News Bears. He was also in the movie with Kate Winslet, where she was nominated for an Oscar, and I'm forgetting what the name of it was because my name is David Samson, and I'm Lawrence Taylor. Age. David Keith from Officer and a Gentleman. And this is a movie about a poker player. It's not exactly Rounders, but it wants to be. It's not exactly Molly's Game, but it could be. It's about a guy who's trying to win money playing poker. And there's a robbery that takes place, except was it an inside job? Maybe, maybe not. Is the fix in? Maybe, maybe not. Does someone owe someone something? Usually, yes. Do people turn on each other? Of course they do. I was solidly entertained by Dead Money. And I don't have any problem when a movie is not as good as the best movie of its genre. That doesn't mean I won't enjoy it. If you're looking for the best poker movie ever made, apologies to maybe a few people who have a 70s movie in mind, but Rounders is it. Dead Money is a very poor man's Rounders. It's sort of like King Queen against pocket aces, but it's not terrible. It just means you're probably not likely to win. Dead Money. Speaking of Dead Money, what do you think about the San Francisco Giants? We covered it yesterday, but I had no idea what awaited me after the show yesterday. One of the things about being live in the morning is we get to cover everything, but then there's news that happens throughout the day, and we save it for tomorrow. The English beat, we save it for later. If you know, you know. That is inside the kimono of nothing personal. If you are with me on that, then you are a incredibly knowledgeable nothing personal fan. Save it for later. So Greg Johnson is the control person of the San Francisco Giants because Larry Baer had a domestic violence situation, and he was, I happen to, this is an artist thing. It was a being judged by your worst moment, which, Larry Baer had a worst moment. And some worst moments are hard to recover from. Greg Johnson, who is the control person, had a press conference where they introduced Buster Posey. They brought in Bomel. Excuse me. It's not Doug Melvin. That is an old baseball name. Although Brewers fans know him and Rangers fans do. Bob Melvin. Bomel. Buster Posey telling you that things are going to get better, Howard. They're just going to get better, I promise. But then Greg Johnson did something during an interview with a local TV station that blew my mind. Coca, can we show the sound on tape of what it was of him saying about hiring Buster Posey, please?
Kept hearing that Chappie was frustrated, nothing was getting done, and yet we weren't getting any kind of response from the agents back and forth with Farhan, and that's really where Buster just reached out and said, hey, let's get together and talk, and that's how things moved along as we did it direct.
Come on. Greg, Scott Boras doesn't deal with GMs or president of baseball ops. He only deals with presidents or owners. You're shocked that in the Chapman negotiation where you overpaid him for an extension during the season with an agent who absolutely doesn't do in-season extensions unless it's an absolute joke, and they basically wiggle their tail Snoopy style and say, wow, we really screwed this team. Come on. And yet you're going to go on tape and actually say, listen, we weren't really getting any traction between Farhan and the agents. He's talking about Boras. So then Buster Posey steps in and takes over and got a response. Not exactly sure that's how it went down. Let me give you a way better scenario about how that would happen. Hey, Farhan, it's Boras. You want Chapman, right? Well, it's going to cost you. Well, I'd like to make an offer to you. Well, that's all right. We'll let you know. Hey, Greg, it's Scott. You want Chapman, right? If you want Chapman, I'm telling you right now, I got 5 teams that want him. No tampering. I just happen to know because I just can see the fit. When I do my thick binder of BS, I know that there are 5 teams, 1 player away from greatness, and that player is Chapman. If you want me not to go through the process, you're going to have to give me the following number. All right. Thanks for that call. I'll have Farhan call you. Nah, I don't think that'll work. Just tell me now, Greg. You're in charge. It's your team. That's what Scott would always say. It's your team. You know what your fan base wants. You know what you need and what you want. You don't need to ask permission. They work for you. Look at the difference that this player, name the player, will make. So Buster Posey gets credit for the overpay of Chapman, and that informs Johnson that Posey would be the best guy for the job. Does that make any sense to you? But then we got a clarification when he talked about why he fired Farhan.
6 years, you hope you're in a better position and not still looking at a 500 team. And I think we kind of made an all-in bet with some one-year deals to try to get us at least to that into the playoffs, and that didn't happen. Now, the other I think decision point was Buster moving forward, and before we'd made any decision, saying, "Hey, I want to do this." So I think that probably increased the probability of us obviously making a change. Then that we had that. If we had to open it up for a search, who knows what would have happened.
There's a couple things to note there. Let's start with the end. If we had to open it up to a search, God forbid we followed the Selig rule, so we didn't open it up to a search. And how about the loyalty of Buster Posey? Hey, I could do that guy's job. Do you ever do that in your company? Do you go to your boss's boss and say, let me tell you something? I can do that. I should be doing that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be aggressive and going after what you want. I am not saying that Buster Posey will be better or worse than Farhan Zaidi. I don't think you can be worse. I'm not saying that he's a bad choice for the job, but I do believe there could have been a slightly better workshop. And here's the workshop that I would propose for Greg Johnson when he meets the media. What a unique opportunity to have a player like Buster Posey, who has an interest, given all of the money he made playing the game, given his borderline Hall of Fame career and 3 championship rings. What an unbelievable opportunity for this franchise to have him as part of the organization. And when talking to him throughout the year, when I believed that he wanted more responsibility, I approached him and I said, would you consider being full-time? Would you consider being our president of baseball operations? Because I think that you'd be the right person. You got to talk to your family, talk to your old agent, do whatever you have to do. But I just want you to think about it. Let me know. Wouldn't it be better to present your president of baseball ops as not someone who undercut his former boss? I'm just throwing it out there. And if you're Farhan, are you looking at that tape? Because believe me, he's listening to this tape. And he's saying, wow, never had a chance. I guess he expected me to be able to speak to Boris. That's obviously never going to happen. Can't happen, doesn't happen, won't happen. And then Buster Posey, who I had in my room, in my office, who I brought into the fold because of his legendary status and giving him increased responsibilities because he wanted to learn. And then he cut off my legs. That's not the kind of guy Buster is. Why would you present him as that way? Completely disagree with that entire interview. But I do wish Buster Posey good luck. And the good news is they fired their GM as we said he would, but then it came out, no, reassigned him. That's always a fun one. That's like going to your hitting coach and say, excuse me, any consideration in being the assistant to the traveling secretary? Just asking. Oh, no? Okay, you're fired. You think the GMs are, hey, listen, no problem. Just make me a scout. It's all good. One more thing on that. The reason why we like to go to someone we're firing and ask them whether or not they would want to be in a different position is so we can tell you, the media and the fans, we are not cold-hearted, blood-sucking meanies. We want to Dixie that guy, but hey, we don't want to do anything to hurt the family because you know that all the statements are, we wish the family nothing but the best. Never met him. Don't know the kids. They come to games and run around like chickens without heads, but man, we wish them the best. Come on. It doesn't make me a bad person. I didn't meet the families of scouts who are on the road 300 days a year. It's incredibly hard to run a business. And I don't mean this to sound so harsh, but look at the layoffs that happen all over the world, all over industries. It's really hard if you say to yourself, oh my God, I'm ruining this person's life. I'm ruining this family's life. I'm taking food off the table for these children. I'm not saying that you don't want to have a heart. I'm saying that when you have a business to run, you have a business to run. And if you want to fire somebody, other than public optics, I mean, the law requires COBRA, so you can have people get health insurance as long as they pay. Severance, there's some rules of severance, but not if you're at will. You know if you're an at-will employee. Do you have a contract? You're an at-will employee. Good luck. I digress. Nothing personal pick of the day. We are 133 and 138. We are running in place. It's like on a treadmill. We keep going 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1. We're still 5 games under after 271 bets. We had Burnes and the Orioles over the Royals. What a great pick that was. Although as a consequentialist, let me rephrase that. What a terrible pick that was. We had the Padres over the Braves. That was a great pick. What do we got today? Well, there's an 87.5% chance that teams that win game 1 will win the series. But game 2 could be the end of the series, or that will inform who will pick tomorrow in any particular game 3s. So really the way I'm looking at game 2s is how can you not take the Astros? If you think the Astros are going to get swept out of the playoffs by the Tigers, although in one game, God knows ACH, and I don't mean payments, I mean anything can happen. But would I rather have Hunter Brown than a bunch of chaos? You can bet your bippy. We're taking the Astros over the Tigers. Unfortunately, tonight will be the final game played by the Atlanta Braves. And all of that excitement, champagne celebration. People say, why would you do a champagne celebration for making the playoffs? Why? Because it may be the only one you get. And it could be a matter of 48 hours later and you're home. It's barely a change of underwear later. Max Fried could be pitching his final game for the Atlanta Braves. He's a free agent. We've taken Max Fried plenty of times this season. He's going against Joe Musgrove, Pirates starter. Padres starter. If you watch the Padres, you know they're a better team than the Braves. Why are they only giving 125, Coca? Odd, subject to change. Is that because of who Max Fried is? Or that the Braves are now on West Coast time? They're feeling good? We're taking the Padres. Those are your nothing personal picks of the day. Every morning, Coca and I get on the stream and Sarah, and we're talking about the stories or we're talking about the events of the day. We didn't talk about the VP debate. I had a split screen situation with the VP debate. Couldn't help but thinking, man, they're way more civil than Kamala and Trump were. Hard to be civil when you're in a debate like the presidential debate. There are some significant policy issues between the Trump ticket and the Harris ticket. I mean, significant. And in terms of who are the odds to be president, I think you'd agree that Harris is younger than Trump. Of course, anything bad can happen to anyone, but you have to really take a look at the VP candidate that he chose. J.D. Vance looks polished, has a good story to tell. Opiate addiction in the family, overcame it. 3 young children. Seems to be way more rational. And then you start thinking about policies, and then you get to make a choice. Tim Walz looks a little bit more like your grandfather, but then you have to look at policies and make a choice. You want to make it just about Israel? All right. Just about abortion? You can do that too. Just about economics? Your economics? Defense? Safety? Immigration? Just do your homework, please. There's so many places you can GTS and you can figure out where you stand, what the differences are, what the actual presidential power is, how important it is to go down ballot and to figure out legislative branch. So the VP debate happened, one and done. We're only 34 days away from the election. The other thing that's in my mind as I was looking at stories and talking to Coca and Sarah, we had a big debate about gambling and the gambling companies. I'm on DraftKings Network. I understand that they are my partner and our partner at Meadowlark Media. However, I owe you a show every day. And I owe you an honest appraisal of things that happen with everybody. This particular story is not about DraftKings, it's about FanDuel. But if something's about FanDuel, it's about the gambling industry in general. Go back to a previous episode where I told you about the Jacksonville Jaguars employee who stole money from the Jaguars. Stole money. It's a crime. He's a criminal. His freedom gone. He decided, I've got an idea. I can't really blame myself for what happened. I'm going to blame a gambling company. This guy is suing FanDuel, the guy who stole $22 million from the Jaguars. He pled guilty. He's now suing FanDuel, saying they preyed on his gambling addiction. It's like getting caught with adultery, man. What were you doing wearing that outfit? You are preying on my sex addiction. I cannot believe that you're serving drinks at this restaurant. You're preying on my alcohol addiction. I can't believe that you would let me gamble on a game and take me on a trip to see the F1 in Miami. You're preying on my gambling addiction. And I am going to pass the buck of blame right to you. Now, I stole $22 million, but I'd like $250 million because you've damaged me. You've intentionally inflicted emotional distress. You're negligent letting me gamble so much. Here's a news alert. We can read all of the provisions we want. Set up all of the 1-800-gamblers and not gamblers, you can call it. There are numbers to call if you are addicted to anything. There are programs you can go to. The way it works with the gambling companies is you wire money in, you put money on your credit card. You can't do it on credit the way you can with a bookie. The responsibility of FanDuel to say, hey, this guy is losing so much money. He must be rich. Well, I don't know if he's rich. Where did he get that money? What exactly is their responsibility? Level of diligence required for a medium-sized gambler? It's like going to Vegas. You get great perks when you gamble in Vegas. Free rooms, free drinks, free concert tickets, maybe even free F1 tickets in Vegas. Who knows? But it's not really free because there's something called theoretical value. When someone comes into a casino and bets a certain amount, they get assigned a theoretical value. What is it over time that we can expect to profit from this person? Wow, epic. You think that stores don't do that? How often can we expect this person, when we push an ad for jeans, to buy a new pair of jeans? Why do I keep getting things from Twillery or Robert Graham or Neiman Marcus or Saks, Nordstrom's Rack for toiletry kits? Man, I am addicted. I'll tell you right now, I got two addictions: carry-on suitcases and toiletry kits and backpacks. Don't forget backpacks. I got enough backpacks that I could outfit a damn school. Man, if I run out of money, I'm going to file a lawsuit. You have preyed on my online shopping addiction. Now, why am I being so cynical with something as serious as gambling? Gambling is serious. So is shopping. So are drugs. So is alcohol. So is emotional management, anger management. What about personal accountability? I don't want to live in a society where you can sue someone to try to make up for what you did wrong and pass the blame to someone else. Man, you made it, so I behave this way. That's what you do when you find yourself in a pickle. Drug addicts do it when they have no more drugs. Oh, I've got to steal. I'm going to commit robbery, fraud. I'm going to defraud my company and then steal out of my grandmother's house her jewelry so I can buy more drugs, so I can gamble on more games, so I can go shopping for more clothes. I want accountability. We all deserve to be accountable and to be held accountable. How inconsistent is it? that you hold other people accountable for their actions. But when you're doing it, you say, man, I had no other choice. What was I going to do? They made it so it was so easy for me to do. They did? What exactly did FanDuel do to make it easy for you to steal from the Jacksonville Jaguars? I'm just throwing it out there. What did they do? This lawsuit has zero chance. It's just business. This is nothing personal.